Do you need the mic? Can you guys hear me? Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Well, it's just for recording. Guys, welcome to Rise. You are almost done with Rise. If you are having this conversation of the listing presentation, it means you have traveled pretty far through the life cycle of a real estate transaction. All right? Has anyone attended all the classes? Or are you guys bouncing around, skipping around? How's it gone so far? What's that? You've done them all? Let's do a quick little check-in. How do you guys feel like your journey's gone? Like, do you feel like you're grasping real estate? Do you feel like there's still holes on like, oh, if somebody asked me to sell their house, I'd be clueless. Where are the holes? Just give me a little feedback on where we got a dude that's not even licensed. I know you've been here a little while. You've got your license for a little while. You've had your license for over a year. And I don't know you, young lady. How long have you had your license?
15 years.
15 years. So we got a veteran in the room, too. Got it. And remind me your name. Eve. Perfect. I'm going to pick on you lots since you're the only lady in the room. All right. And you're 15 years, so you should be teaching this, not me. You didn't. Well, then that's a good point. Going from new construction to resale is kind of a different animal for sure. Yeah. So where are your holes? Where are your gaps? How's it gone?
Even if it's your buyer or listener, you have to make sure those adjustments. That's my problems.
Adjustments. Are you talking about like the CMA?
Yeah. So
Okay.
spreadsheet or anything anywhere, it's just kind of a guessing game. I mean, if you get into a house that's got some really unique things, I don't know how to make these adjustments.
Got it. You guys did CMA last class, right? I know what was at the topic of last class, CMAs. Yeah, and that class should be an all-day class. Like there is so much to talk when it comes about pricing. Good realtors can get even better than appraisers in my mind, if they really get hyper focused and specialize in certain neighborhoods, certain niches, and really have the pulse on the buyer market for certain neighborhoods. And you guys know what I'm talking about. There's a big difference between, I mean, pick your neighborhoods, but a mountain property versus a valley property, or a lakefront property versus Provo River Bottoms. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, Jake.
I love doing business with people that I know, trust, and I think that creates a goal in my business, which is not being as polished. But the way that I present myself, the way that I'm doing a listing, so for the buyer, be more structure and I guess concrete process in the way that I do.
Yeah. If you guys didn't hear that, that's something that it comes as you get better and get more entrenched in your career, where you get pretty good. You get a little, I don't want to use the word cocky, but you get comfortable with your sphere of influence, where your buddy calls you up and says, hey, I'm thinking about selling, and you walk in with the listing paperwork and say, sweet, let's get her sold. We're going to do this and this and this, sign here. And you maybe rob them of the experience to actually enjoy your professionalism and have the experience that you would normally give a stranger that you're competing with multiple agents. I will never forget one of the most valuable, expensive lessons in my life was my 3rd year in real estate. I rolled up to Sunday dinner at my brother-in-law's house and saw a competitor's real estate sign in his yard. And I said, bro, like, the knife is deep. Like, what's going on? And he just said, yeah, he did the whole classic. I don't want to mix business with family. I hate that line. We all do. Don't want to mix business with family. And I've known this guy for years as just like top tier professional. And I realized, I'm like, okay, so in his mind, this guy was the professional and I was the little brother-in-law. It's like, oh, I didn't even like, because I just assumed that when it came time to sell, I would just sell it. I never actually said, hey, can we sit down and actually go through what I do to sell a home?
Maybe your brother.
Well, I don't think she knew what was going on too. Yeah, I think she was little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, So today we're going to talk listing presentation, but I also want to have it be a little bit more conversational than presentation, but I do want to kind of give how I would give a presentation. You guys can poke holes in it or take what you want out of it and learn from it. And we can kind of take the conversation where you want to take it. But I do like to start with probably the hardest part of our whole jobs comes to a head in this conversation. And that is when somebody says, what's the average price right now for real estate that we're selling? What's our average home price? We're over 500. What'd you say? About 550. We're dancing with 6 here soon. What's the average commission rate? What commission rate do you charge? Shout it out. What do you charge? 3%. How much is 3% of 600 grand? $18,000. So, should we keep picking on Eve? And I'll pick on somebody. I'll pick on you, Dave. Dave, why in the flip should I pay you $18,000 to throw my home on the MLS? So I'll stop you right there. But you understand that is the question that every human on earth is going to ask you when you're having these conversations is how in the world is this process and you worth potentially $18,000 out of my pocket to go through this process, right? There's an article being spun all around social media right now. Your clients will definitely see it that says ChatGPT just sold my house. Have you seen it yet? If you haven't, you will as soon as you start scrolling. It's a bogus article, by the way, if you read it. It's not real at all. I think it's total clickbait just to piss realtors off. But the fact of the matter is your clients don't know that, and they're going to look at that and they're going to ask that same question and say, is there a moment of Homey having a resurgence or FSBOs for that matter? You know, there was a time where for sale by owners were massively successful. Ironically, that's died. Almost nobody for sale by owners anymore. And also when the market got tough, Homey is virtually dead at this point. So it's interesting because the market has shifted and said, you know what, realtors are indeed worth 3%, maybe 2.5% on some, but 3%. And in 20 years of me doing real estate, I would say it's, and I'm sure we could get into the stats, but it certainly feels like in my view that the majority and the market has absolutely declared that realtors charging 3% is the right answer. So what you have to answer yourself is, why are you worth $18,000? What are they paying for? And then next, why should I pay you $18,000 over this guy? Or we'll pick on you, the new guy that's never sold a house in his life. He's not licensed yet, so we can pick on him. How in the world do I pay you, the new guy, $18,000 when I've got 15 years in the business experience over here? Does that all make sense? Does that make you nervous? Makes me nervous. I've been doing this. So what's the answer? What makes you worth that money? What's that? Got to show your value. Yeah, and it starts with also understanding, and I'll pick on kind of the newbies. A lot of times we get into real estate and you say, what's your product? And you say, well, my product's houses. I sell houses. That's my product. Is it? What are they paying $18,000 for? Are they paying $18,000 for a house? Not at all. Well, in that whole transaction encapsulates so much stuff, right? There is a sense of consultation, and that has value. Sometimes people pay specialists, especially if you use the example of the medical world or even the business world, is they spend a ton of money on consultants. There are full-time jobs all around the world in all industries that are just highly paid consultants because consultation absolutely has value, right? So are we consultants? For sure. Right? We consult heavily on what you guys just learned 2 days ago, which is pricing. That conversation alone is so valuable if you do know your stuff. And so don't discount that. When someone just says, hey, will you just like pop by and just tell me what my house is worth? Don't discount that. You're not Zillow. You're a highly trained professional that says, I know how to translate not just the sold data, but I can also read the tea leaves on some of the active data. And by judging days on market and these things, I can really, get as close as magic will allow to predict what our expectations should be for selling your house. Don't discount that. So consulting is a big part of it. What else is part of that whole enchilada? Negotiating. Multi-billion-dollar businesses they usually just call them lawyers, but they have professional negotiators for a reason, right? That has value, huge value. And as you perfect your negotiation skills, it is absolutely safe to argue and safe to make comments, in my opinion, that you can tell people by having a professional negotiator like me, your chances of netting more money in your pocket far surpasses the $18,000 you'll pay me. That alone, right? And there's example after example after example of people that just get hammered when they've got their homie listing or their for sale by owner listing because buyer's agents like me walk in and we just wreck them. We beat them up on the initial negotiations. We beat them up on the inspection. We beat them up again on the appraisal, and we just beat the heck out of them because we're professional negotiators, and they don't have that. Yeah.
Just want to talk about that. My dad's home. We bought for sale by owners off market. They had it like 50 grand under what it should have been listed, and there were some things that needed, updating with the house. So like, he ended up walking in for like 75 grand of equity from the start, just because he worked in the versus he thought I'd save some money because I don't need to work with an agent.
And use that story in these conversations because they happen more often than not. And so too often. And remember, you are in Utah County, you are in coupon land, and it's been that way my entire life. Probably will be that way, but we are obsessed in this county with being cheap. And I will use the word cheap. And y'all know and we're all guilty of it too. Yeah. And and it comes out in real estate all the time too, where it's like we don't pay a lot for staging. We don't pay, like, people are just cheap. We are the land of discounts in all things. So you've got to combat that and justify, hey, why should I not list with Homie and why should I list with you? You got to be prepared for that. So when I go on these listing appointments, I find that, and there's a lot of different ways to kind of have this conversation, but I would describe it this way. First of all, just raise a hand. Who has not been on a listing appointment? Okay, so we've got a handful in here. So and that's just it. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. You're like, well, I'm just going to show up.
I have gone out, yeah.
But you've talked on the phone, started to make a plan. Perfect. And those of you that have, you'll probably get this feeling. So there's no listing appointment that fits all, right? And that's what we've got. And we just talked about it. Consultation is important. So this is what I would love to just like ingrain in your head. And that is when you have somebody that says, I want to sell my home, I'd like to consider you, come meet me. Know that listing appointment has two halves. And it might be lopsided one way or another. The first half is consultation, right? It's you asking questions and you creating a plan that fits their needs based on what their goals are. The second half of that appointment is presentation. And there is a difference and it matters. The presentation is where you are presenting why me, why am I worth $18,000? And leading to a signed agreement, right? Now, I have always erred on the side of being too consultation heavy. I have multiple stories that I could share with you where I walked into an appointment and I just hit it off, being me, talking to these two. I'll never forget my two little old ladies. They were the sweetest things. We were joking. It was 2 hours of walking the house, shooting the breeze, but I consulted them till they were blue in their face on just like what their plans were, because they were gonna move to this place where they had more gardening and all this stuff. And it was a 2-hour-long meeting, and it wasn't until I went to close them and say, all right, are you ready to like get started and sign the listing agreement? They said, oh, well, we're meeting with 3 other real estate agents. I already spent 2 hours with them. And so they didn't sign with me. And guess what? They never signed with me. They ended up going with another agent. And I always reflect on that as the example of I did all consultation and I neglected to actually present to actually get the closing because that was 2 consultation. On the flip side, there's plenty of stories too that agents will have where they just went present, 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 present. And then when they go to the close, you have a seller that says, boy, I don't feel like we diagnosed anything. You talked about you the whole time, not about me. That's no bueno as well. You've got to kind of find that. The best way to know what your presentation is going to be is by asking the pre-qualifying questions before the appointment. And I don't know if this class teaches that anymore. We used to have a whole class on preparing for this appointment. Hopefully you are. If you're not, there are certain questions that you should always ask. For example, are you meeting with multiple agents? When I come to meet with you, do you intend to put your home on the market with me? And fill out timeline. Because if they say, oh yeah, I'm meeting with 5 different agents, I will be presentation heavy. If they say, no, dude, Clay, you're my guy. I just need to make a plan. Well, then I know I'm consultation heavy, right? It's an entirely different appointment. Makes sense? Questions on that? So as we jump into this is just kind of maybe a little more vanilla because we don't really know the setup, and maybe a little more heavy on the presentation instead of the consultation. Know that consultation, and I'll just maybe touch on a few things, and that is I want to spend time on their timing for sure, and their goals. And sometimes, like as simple as this is, realtors forget to ask the golden question of simply, why are you moving? And I know that sounds really basic, but that is your secret weapon for motivation. Because when you have to have the hard conversation walking through the house and say, oh, I smell cat. Oh, that cat died. Did it die in the house? Because I can smell it. And you have to have the hard conversation of saying, hey, I can smell the cat. We might need to get the cat out of here, whatever. And they say, well, it's not worth it to me. Well, that's where it's easier to maybe just remind, hey, we can do these hard things if we go back to why are we selling? Is it to downsize, upside, get closer to the grandkids, get closer to the job, whatever is. Knowing the why and being able to reflect on that often keeps the motivation up throughout the whole process. So I want to know timing, I want to know motivation, and I want to have that before I start presenting. I usually start with consulting first, so I know what I'm presenting for, right? We don't have time to like role play the walkthrough of the house or anything, do we? This class is different than it used to be, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
You say consultation. Are you trying to read whatever makes safe conversation?
I'm much more dialed in now, that's for sure. No, my consultation, it follows a pretty simple structure. I'm going to start with, why am I here? Why are you thinking about selling your house? Because I want to identify that's number one. Then I want to know how soon do you have to be there? And that matters. And then when I know, okay, timing, why you have to be there, then I want to talk about process. And what I mean by process is, are you in the home while we're selling? Do you have the ability to buy your next home without selling this? Do you need to make an offer? Is there even a next home? Sometimes it's you're selling a rental property, you're selling mom and dad who just passed away, whatever, it's an estate sale and they inherited a home. I want to understand that situation, and then I want to make a game plan. Oftentimes people are just doing a move up, move down, or lateral move. They're living in the home, so I want to consult through how that works in terms of playing the dominoes. Are we going to list the home and expect to accept an offer that's contingent upon us finding a home? Or are we feeling like we need to go make an offer on a home contingent upon selling this home? And what are the pros and cons of both? I want to know what we're lining up and if we're playing dominoes for sure. Because all of that's going to boil down to the CMA conversation of not just, because CMA is not just price. Y'all know when you do a CMA, and I don't know who taught it the other day, but price is only one factor of many things that I want to know. I want to say, okay, what realistically can we expect on price? But then I want to know, what can I realistically expect on days on market? And am I paying closing costs? And are we paying a BAC? Are we paying buyer's agent commission? What is the average based on the comparables? I want to know all of those things, but days on market absolutely matters. If someone says, hey, I just got a job transfer down to Scottsdale, Arizona. I got to be there in 90 days. And my CMA says this market is slow as can be. You're 4 to 5 months realistically to sell this home. We need to have a hard conversation about that and say, okay, either we cheat that process by haircutting our price pretty good, or we need to set some expectations of maybe the family gets broken up for a few months and dad's moving down to chase the job while mom's helping me get the home sold. So that's what I mean by consultation, is just what are we dealing with the plan? Once I feel like, hey, I've got a pretty good plan here and we've got the market data, sometimes I'll do the presentation first, depending on how the conversation goes with the CMA. But generally those conversations, and I'll just kind of take a step back here. When I'm in the home, I always break it into 3 parts, and I always default. So if you're ever in home, like, what do I talk about next? I always go to my 3 ingredients to selling a home. And I'll even tell, the sellers, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, everything we talk about in this appointment usually falls into one of these 3 buckets. These are the 3 ingredients to sell a home. The first and most important, frankly, is pricing. We want to look at the comparables. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of a buyer and determine what our expectations are around pricing and what our pricing strategy should be. The second ingredient to a sale is my job. That's the marketing. And I'd like to present to you what I do that's so great with the marketing and the negotiations that's worth $18,000 of commission, so that you have confidence that I'm the right guy to get the job done of selling your home. And then the third ingredient and the third bucket to sell your home is your job. And that's the condition of the home and how it shows when I bring people through it. So I'm going to walk the home and we're going to talk about staging. We're going to talk about decor. We're going to talk about smelling, seeing, everything that a buyer will experience walking through their home. And on a scale from 1 to 10, how honest can I be with you while we have that conversation? Is it a 10? Good. I smell your dog. Let's send the dog to the farm. Your house stinks. Just kidding. I wouldn't say it quite like that. But you have to have those hard conversations. I have had to send the dog away because it absolutely matters. And sometimes I've been in listing appointments where the entire conversation, like for a long time, is how do we whip this house into shape? Remember, you're in Utah County. We have our homes really dirty in Utah County. I know that sounds really mean. I know it's going to offend you. When you walk through a lot of homes, I shouldn't say that. Maybe it's the kid thing or whatever, but we got a lot of and I shouldn't say dirty, clutter. We love our stuff. We're just like anywhere. We have and I'm sure it's everywhere, but we have so much stuff in our houses. So I'll talk through those 3 conversation points in the listing appointment. Yeah.
If I get into it later, I'm curious, you go through that, if it's a home that needs those things, do you have that conversation right then, or how do you cover costs for, like, we're gonna need serious staging, we're gonna need to get ozone in here, we're gonna need to clean the carpets with cat flea, like, is that all coming out of your 3%, or are you charging them on top of it, or how do you do that negotiation?
Yeah, great point. I do talk about it, but I'll answer it right now, and that is it's a hybrid of both, but generally it is on them. It is on them. If we're doing ozone, I have an ozone machine, so I'll do the ozone. You guys know what ozone machines are? Gets the smell. They're pretty effective, weirdly. But I'll do ozone. In staging, I do light staging. This is where realtors all kind of are different. For most of my career, I did 0 staging whatsoever. But in the last few years, it has just naturally been easy for me to say, hey, especially when I've worked more with investors and people that are absentee owners, they're not there. It's either an investment or rental, whatever. As I've had more of those kind of land on my lap, I have provided, I call it light staging. It's decor. It's just not staging, it's decor. So it's the plant, it's it's a lot of towels and linens, right? In the bathrooms, in the kitchen, little plant here, a little air wick here, it's stuff like that. I do some full staging, and that's usually negotiated. Most of the time I have them pay for it. A few times on the big homes that have massive commission checks, I'll go 50-50 with them. But I want skin in the game. Otherwise, staging will just murder your budget in a hurry. It is very expensive.
Staging,
All the time. It's happening as we speak upstairs. Yep.
certain, like, cause I did a little research on it and some people were going, oh, it's too holistic, but I saw them and I was going, wow, I was really blown away by it.
Yeah, I think it's funny that virtual staging companies still think they're going to be around in the next 48 hours. It's called ChatGPT. Yeah, virtual staging companies are obsolete. Best thing to do is just throw the photo on your phone, throw it into ChatGPT, and give it a good prompt. Say, check out this photo right here. I've got one couch, but no love seats, no rugs. Add some love seats, add some rugs, make it give it a modern twist to it, and make sure it stays consistent with the color palette you see in the photo. ChatGPT does the rest. Yeah. I'll have to, yeah. I stopped paying for ChatGPT this week. I made the switch to Claude officially. So Claude's the ChatGPT killer. CLAUDE, Claude, like a dirt clod. Yeah. Yep. We do that a lot.
You do yourself.
I have done it myself, but because I'm like running a million miles an hour today, I have Kate and my marketing assistant upstairs doing it literally as we speak. And it takes like 5 minutes. It's not tough. Which also, just gonna get on my little soapbox, I'm really bugged that my photographer doesn't do it. So I'm gonna have a hard conversation with him that says, hey, you either need to catch up, or we got a problem. But if you go photograph and I'm sure he might say like, oh, well, I don't know exactly what the style is or what you want in and to his defense, he could say it's so easy, just throw it in ChatGPT and you do it yourself. Like, okay, fine, whatever. But the fact that it's become so easy. So virtual staging it's all in your pocket now. It's easy breezy. Yeah. So let's jump into this since we're running low on time. Everybody should have a listing presentation packet of some kind. Sometimes we call it the pre-listing packet. You'll see that if you jump into command on KW. There's an idea that it doesn't happen as much anymore, but back in the day, a lot of realtors would actually pre-deliver like a packet to somebody's home. Then that morphed pretty quick to just simply an email that says, hey, in preparation for our meeting, here's some material for you to look through. I am a fan of that. I usually do still email. This is literally the same thing. It's all fancy now, but it's I printed off most of my career. You've got Command can give you a version of a pre-listing packet. And I send them to this website where I've got a little video, of why you should list your home, all of that. And the reason I do like sending it ahead of time is it can pre-answer questions where you could get in. I'll say, hey, did you review that email I sent you? Did you look through like my marketing, what I do? Do you have any questions about that? No, it all looks good. And you can always have a nice soft close where you can ask somebody, well, great. Assuming we can agree on price, is this the marketing plan you think that you'd want to have to get your home sold? And if I get a yes, that appointment just got a lot shorter, right?
Same script, but Eastern.
Everything that's coming out of my mouth is R&D, ripped off and duplicated from somebody else. Just so we're real clear. Yeah. Even Cameron's listing packet that he gives all the new agents when you join the office is literally one of my old listing packets. You're going to see a lot of the similar stuff here, but the thing is a lot of the stuff in my listing packet I ripped off from somebody else. This industry is you don't have to go recreate the wheel. If you're recreating the wheel, you're wasting time. Yeah, it's well, years and years and years ago, but now I've grabbed little bits and pieces from other things I like. And I've caught myself in some listing appointments where I'm having a conversation where I was kind of unprepared. And I thought, ooh, it'd be really nice to have a visual for this, which I've flipped over sheets of paper and drawn lots of times in appointments too. So this is kind of what I use right now. And you guys will see a lot of this as you go through. But like even this, I did make a little video. This doesn't have it, but in the printed version, I have a QR code. So if somebody wants to scan it, watch a little video of everything. So this looks boring, but it is important. Right on essentially virtually the first page, I have a mission statement. And I know that can kind of sound a little bit dorky, but it does resonate with a lot of people. And I have found myself multiple times in listing appointments where the conversation's going well, and somehow the question comes out about where somebody says, well, Clay, why do you love what you do? And people want to hear that. Sometimes it's really fun for people to know, what's your why? Like, why did you choose to be a real estate agent? Why, out of all the things to do, why that? And that's really like satisfying for a lot of people to know your big why. Some people don't care, but some people do. But it's important to me. And so to have a mission on like, why did I choose to become a real estate agent? And it really drives home that I love helping people build wealth, especially legacy wealth, because real estate can outlive humans. But building wealth through your real estate decisions brings a lot of fulfillment to me. And I'll mention that to people and say, so like when I say like, hey, I really want you to get the best bang for your buck for your house, like that's not just a phrase that I'm saying to butter you up. I really actually do get a lot of satisfaction in knowing that you just hit a home run in your real estate decisions. So much so that it's the first thing I have in my presentation.
Or maybe a first-time home buyer as opposed to a luxury.
Yeah, but my packet, like for example, this packet is virtually the same packet I would take to a condo in Vineyard. As I do have a slightly different, more just for imagery, for like a big luxury $3 million home. But at the end of the day, the content's the same. But I will tell you this, I couldn't tell you if I've ever actually had a presentation where I am going page by page from start to, it's usually we're jumping around based on the conversation and where I hear them and where I hear like what's important. Like even this, like I don't spend a lot of time talking about like, well, look at all the homes I've sold and all the 5 stars reviewed. Hopefully we're kind of looking past that. Oftentimes I come straight to this page. If somebody's like a first-time home seller, or I say, have you ever sold a home? And they say, no, I mean, we bought this one, but no, I've never sold a home. Like I really don't know what's next, And I'll hurry and flip up and just say, well, let's just run through the map real quick of like, how do we walk through the home selling process and why are these things important and things like that. So I know you guys can't really, let me pass these. Yeah, it's just a little infographic. I don't have enough for everybody. We just pass 2 down on each side. Yeah, you want to hit the lights? That might be easier.
Where do you have your script for that?
I can't remember the name of the company. Alpha Graphics usually does it. It's just so expensive. These are $3 a pop, you guys. That's why I've never done it. We just had these done like a couple weeks ago. And so, yeah, I want them all back, y'all. No, I don't think so.
Wait.
Well, you can get them cheaper if you just buy like 1,000. But if you only buy, the problem is I change this like every 6 months. So I'm like, well, I don't want to buy 1,000. I'm not gonna have 1,000 listing appointments, beforehand. That works pretty good. But I'll jump in and say, all right, look, we're here. We're having a consultation, and we're talking about pricing, and then we're talking about preparing the home for the photo shoot. The photo shoot is a huge step, right? Because that's like the last big thing before we go live on the market, and then we lead generate, and then we talk about going through the offer process. How do we review offers when we get them? I'm going to show you all the offers. Hopefully, we get the miracle of multiple offers right now. Once we accept that offer, then we have due diligence. That's where they're going to inspect this home bumper to bumper, and know the home, what it has, then it's going to get appraised, yada, yada, documents of title, closing. So we'll kind of walk through and spend some time on that page if we go through it. This is where, we kind of talked about, let's jump into, Mr. and Mrs. home seller on how do we make the home present well. Being back to my 3 buckets on how's it look. We'll talk about lighting. This is where too, you guys need to get some skills. The fastest way to get good, because is anybody here a home stager or a designer? I'm certainly not. You are, of course you are, Eve. You've got everything. You're an interior designer. Well, for the rest of us, we're not interior designers, but can we get good at it? Yes. How? Practice. What does that practice look like? Walking homes all the time. There's something to be said when you walk into a home and they say, and you're able to say, I'm not an interior designer, but I've been through all the active listings that are on our CMA. I've been through all the comps. I know who the best looking ones are. I also probably visit 1,000 homes every single year. So yeah, I don't need to go to Pinterest to tell you that Barnwood is in style right now. Like I know it's in style. I've seen it all. But also I've walked most of those homes with buyers and I have seen how they react when they're walking through a home. For example, I have on my first thing, depersonalize. I'll tell you a story from last week. Walked into a listing appointment. And I said, all right, we're going through the home. Nice home, clean home. Didn't have to worry about too many things. But I had to have a conversation. I said, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I said, I generally tell everyone to follow the 3 Ds when you're prepping your home for photos. The first D is depersonalize. The second is deep clean. And the third is usually the hardest one, because we're in Utah, declutter, declutter, declutter. We need to talk about the first one, though. We need to talk about depersonalizing. I spend a lot of time walking homes with buyers, and when buyers walk into a home and when they are greeted by the family portrait, what do you think they do? They walk up and they say, did I go to high school with any of these people? And then subconsciously they realize, oh, I'm in their home, and it kind of derails the psychological process of saying, could this be my home? Because we are now guests in those people's home. Oh, and look, there's our photos here, and there's our photos here. And it kind of derails the process for them to fall in love with the home because they're a visitor in your home and not imagining, themselves in it. So we need to tone down your photos. Now, I still want art on the wall. I just want to swap out a lot of those photos with just some neutral art. New construction understands this very well. They have imagery on the walls, but it's usually something neutral, something vanilla, something happy that sparks joy. If you want to rob a Marie Kondo line there. Last week's conversation wasn't about their family photos. It was about Jesus. I've had this multiple times. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I just had one last week where I walked in, went through the house, and I said, hey, we need to depersonalize the house. And we all love Jesus, but we've got a little too much Jesus. And I'd like to just kind of tone it down. I counted, it was like a dozen between the front room, the family room, and their kitchen. Just a lot, just a little overbearing. And the word I use, I just said, hey, it just could be a little distracting. Even for somebody that is a faithful, believing person, they could just get a little distracted, just a little much. And so we want to kind of neutralize that. We got to neutralize Jesus and tone down. And that's literally, like, those are the words I used in this conversation. And they responded great. Said, yeah, we get it. We can tone down Jesus. We got it. But we've got to have those conversations. The best example I tell people too is when we're having the declutter, depersonalize, and deep clean the house is just compare it to new construction. Say and ask them, have you ever walked through a model home? If you haven't ever watched HGTV or anything, what would you assume a model home would look like? That's what we want to look like. We want to be something that everybody will enjoy. So when you have like a dead bear on the wall, maybe we don't want to have the dead bear on the wall. There are people in the world that get very, very distracted by that. You've got your Confederate flag up, your pride flag up. You've got some of these statements that are here in your house, which could be super meaningful to you. When you're selling a home, that's not the time to have that messaging. It's distracting. It could derail somebody's experience of trying to fall in love with your home. So we just want to neutralize it. Make sense? All right, marketing. You asked about virtual staging. Here's some examples of things. I will say this, when you guys are building your listing presentation, try to have like your real photos. Like, this is a real listing. I still remember this exact house that we sold. Use real photos. Like, these are real screenshots of our stuff. Try to avoid stock photos as much as possible. Okay, so this page, even though this is small, this is a part that I spend a lot of time on. And I want to have this conversation with this group because this should be valuable to the newbies. So we talk about the 3 buckets, right? Marketing is my job. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's my job to make sure we get as much exposure as possible. And that exposure should be with incredible photos, incredible description, accurate description when you go out there. But how do we get the maximum exposure? You guys cannot even read this. That's why this is not I was looking to see if we had a bigger version of this. But I do in almost all of my listing appointments just quickly touch on this pie chart. What that pie chart represents is the study that the National Association of Realtors does every year, where they ask a pool of buyers that bought a home that year. They ask the question, how did you first learn about the home that you ultimately purchased? How did you learn about it? And this is how it comes back. The biggest section, and you guys can't read this, just simply says online internet. So they're browsing on their favorite website, and they found it, whether that was utahrealestate.com or if it was Redfin or Zillow, whatever. They were online and they found it, right? The second largest, believe it or not, are real estate agents, where they reported my real estate agent sent it to me. Now it's crazy that this is shrinking because that essentially is just an alert. We should all have it, right? With your buyers, you're just sending alerts. They said, well, my real estate agent sent it to me, and then we went and looked at it. And then you've got all these other little slivers. Believe it or not, a for sale sign in front of the house still makes it where they say, we were just driving around. We saw a sign. We liked the home, so we called on it. It was in one of our favorite neighborhoods. Boy, I can't even read what all these say, but I know that, yeah, do you see it? Directly from sellers, that's the big chunk, a pretty big one, right? Yep, a friend, relative, or neighbor. So it's like neighbors talking to each other. And then like one of the smallest ones is open house, right? It's like 1% or something that said they walked through an open house. Changes every year, but it's the National Association of Realtors. And honestly, KW does a fantastic job. Gary Keller does what's called the vision speech. And then Johnny Christensen here in our office, he does a Utah regional presentation every quarter with all the market data. And one of the sections in there are these stats. They call them the NAR stats, the National Association of Realtors stats, on their little surveys and stuff like that. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is important because when we're looking for a buyer for your home, I want to make sure that no stone is left unturned when it comes to marketing. So number one, when it comes to the internet, know that I go all out, meaning any and every website that is advertising homes for sale in Orem, Utah will have your listing on it. It's called syndication, and I make sure that we are fully syndicated. So whether somebody's on Zillow, Redfin, whatever website, oremhousesforsale.com, you were on there with your professional photos, your description, all of that.
Does it automatically go to like Zillow?
Most important question of the day, right? So I made a pretty bold statement. Every single website on planet Earth that has real estate for sale in Orem, you will be on it. How do I fulfill that promise? What's that? The MLS. It hasn't always been that way, for the record. But right now, between the MLS, when you put a listing on the MLS, it syndicates to, honestly, 90% or so. But then there are other websites, and KW is one of them, that your listing goes to KW. And Gary Keller's negotiated several contracts that pick up essentially the other 10% through the brokerage. So like, it's so easy. You just list it on the MLS. But what people don't understand, and it is our job to say, but by virtue of us doing that, we cover that. Now, that's not the same for commercial, for the record. Commercial doesn't have the same MLS syndication that residential does. But for residential, it's so easy for us to do. You put it on the MLS, but it's in these. But they don't know that. And they need to understand that that's one of the values that you bring, is making sure that you are properly presented on every website under the sun. When it comes to real estate agents, that's also done by the MLS, right? People are on alerts and this and that. But that's also, there's little things. You'll see agents make the biggest blunder that you can possibly make, which is prematurely list your listing where you don't have your photos up, you don't have your description all buttoned up, and you hit that publish button. I still see it. It shocks me that realtors still do that. But the second you hit that publish button, you hit the alerts. Almost all realtors and their buyers, they're on alerts, right? They're getting the email alerts. If you blow that moment, you should just hang up your license now and quit, because that's so embarrassing and such a blunder on your part to miss that initial punch. That is the most powerful punch of the entire listing process, is hitting the publish button. So be perfect when you hit publish, right? Because that's how you hit that much of the pie chart, because they're all watching. And arguably, most of the people on the internet, they just have Zillow alerts and all the, whatever their favorite site, they have their alerts set up. And of course, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to have a sign up. I'm not going to have a flyer box on that sign intentionally, because flyers get wet and soggy from the sprinklers. The neighbors all just steal them, and you have an empty box most of the time. And most importantly, I can't track that. I can't track who grabs flyers. So I'm not going to have a flyer box on the sign. Instead, I'm going to have a QR code or a short link. And the office provides these for you guys, but we're going to have a way for somebody to quickly get information they want, but I will be able to capture their information and do my job, which is to invite them and sell them on having an experience of coming and having a walkthrough. So we'll have a sign, and then certainly if you're up for it, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want to do an open house. It's less than 1%, but we're not going to leave any stone left unturned. So I'd love to do an open house and see if we can get people through your home. Does that sound like a marketing plan that would get your home sold? A soft close. Yes. So assuming we can agree on price, are you ready to list your home? It's really important. These are soft closes, because when I always ask that after I'm done talking about marketing, because I want them to say, well, actually, no, tell me more about, are you going to like put flyers and canvass my neighborhood and put flyers in all my neighborhood? I'm so glad you asked that, because I forgot to tell you. But yes, in preparation for my open house, we're going to go invite all the neighbors and put flyers on their doors. Are there any other marketing pieces that you've seen on HGTV or that you expect me to do that I just forgot to mention? I want to hear them say, well, yeah, what about, are you going to make a video of my home? Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. I used to make videos on all my homes until I realized that I was missing out on showing opportunities, because people were just watching the videos and they didn't have the, they missed out on the experience of actually standing in your home. So I would recommend no, don't give them don't give them everything right now. Leave just enough behind the curtain that they need to come walk through the home. So no, I don't recommend that we do a video. Or you might say, yeah, this is the type of home. All our buyers are going to be out of state. We need a video. All right? I want to hear them say, like, their marketing pieces that they want. There's nothing worse than losing a listing because you forgot to mention that you would put flyers on the neighbor's door. And that's a true story. I didn't get a listing and I said, hey, what happened? Why'd you choose the other guy? I just want a little feedback on how to better my business. And he said, oh, the other guy said that he was going to like canvass our neighborhood and like invite all of our neighbors to find a buyer. And I said, well, I do that in preparation for the open house. I said, oh, I didn't know that, but I already signed with them. Yeah, true story. Ugh, you kidding me? Questions?
How far out do you go in terms of, putting flyers out for people to come to you? Do you like go in and
As much as I have time for.
do you do yourself?
If I'm doing the open house, yeah. Yeah, if I'm doing the open house, I'll be honest, usually I'm not doing the open house. Usually I'd invite you guys, if some of you have done open houses for me, which is your opportunity to pick up leads. But whoever does the open house, I generally recommend they do either the night before or the morning of, doing the Saturday morning. And my advice is always like, don't overthink it. Just by sheer virtue of you like out knocking doors and passing out flyers it's so cool. Like just do as much as you can. Even if you're like, I only got 20 done, high fives. Like that is more than most agents will ever do. So just get out and do what you can. If you can put in a couple of hours and do like 100 doors, you're going to get business. Like that's just the truth of it. The power in the open house is not to sell the listing. It's less than 1%. We just saw it. And I'll even tell my sellers that like, we'll do it. Just know, and I have some sellers that will say, well, I don't really know if I want every, looky-loo to come tromping their muddy boots through my house. I say, I understand that. Well, let's just do appointment only. Let's not worry about the open house. I've got multiple listings right now, and usually they're higher end homes. Say, no, I don't want strangers that will never qualify to buy my house just walking through my house to get decor ideas, or just random other agents here to do their little tickety talk videos in my nice house. There are a lot of homes that are nice that they're not dumb. They know people just want access to the home to come film their really cool Lego collection in the basement, So it's not for everybody. But on the open house for us agents, yeah, you might be able to sell the home, but where the power of an open house comes from is both potentially doing CMAs and getting into a relationship with neighbors that are thinking about selling. And then of course, picking up buyers that walk in and say, yeah, I like the home, but I don't love it. And you can say, well, what would make you love it? And they say, oh, if it only had this. And you said, well, what if I meet you here in a couple hours and we go look at some homes in that neighborhood that has X, Y, or Z? Next thing you know, you picked up a buyer client. That's the value. Yeah. After I've done my soft close of, hey, does that sound like a marketing plan that will get your home sold? Usually that's where we button up the conversation. We talk about pricing. Sometimes I spend time I have a couple of pages here on pricing. And we've talked about this, days on market or weeks on market. The freshness factor matters. This is why you should never overprice your home to come right out the gates, is you could burn through the most important weeks being overpriced only to then lower your price, but already be in low activity. So sometimes I kind of point at this graph and have that conversation. Sometimes, back to the conversation of, do we need to fix up the house and do it? I've got a vendor for everything, and I'll even manage that process for people for a 10% fee. I'll let people know, if you want me to flip your house, I'll manage it all. I'll get the plumber out here. You're gonna pay for it all. Well, if they pay for it all, there's no fee. I'll just manage it, and just part of what I do as a listing agent, we'll get coordinated. But sometimes people say, hey, I can't afford to do it. And I'm like, oh, if only you had new carpet and new paint and a new countertop there, you would crush it. Based on the comps, you would crush it. But I don't have money for that. I do have a service. I'll say, great, I'm going to pay for it all. You're going to pay me back at closing. But you're going to pay me a 10% override GC fee to do, and call it a financing fee if I'm going to finance it, but you're going to pay me back at closing. And then I do have a contract that secures that so that they can't burn me. That's landed me multiple listings, probably a couple a year that do that. We don't do a ton, but I do a lot of them where we'll pay for a soft flip. I don't like doing anything more than 25 grand though. Then I get a little nervous. I don't want to be a flipper for them. But that's a conversation that we'll have. And then, of course, when we agree on price, usually the conversation, by the way, from here is going over to the CMA, where we're talking about, we agree on price, all that. It's okay, great. We feel like we got a good price. My commission fee is 3%. You don't pay anything up front. You don't pay for it until it closes. I also operate with an easy exit agreement, which means at any time during this process, if you decide you want to fire me, you can. It's that simple. At any time during this process, if I want to fire you, I might, but that's not going to happen because we're hitting it off great, right? So you'll pay 3% when it closes, and be prepared that most likely the buyer will ask for 3% when they make their offer. So we need to be prepared for that. So after this meeting, I'm going to send, or I'll do it on paper. Let's just do a quick little net sheet based on that price, based on these, and I'll just handwrite this usually, even though I think I've got a, nope, I took it out. I took it out because I always end up just handwriting. That's the one thing that's just nice, to handwrite the math and just say, so here's, and what's your mortgage payoff? Oh, you owe 500 on the home. Okay. So we're roughly going to be around this price. Any questions about this? This is usually where people would flesh out, do I really have to pay a buyer's agent 3%? We can have that conversation. Are you willing to come off your 3%? I can address that objection, and we can, go through that. Questions? Yeah.
So after we get. Whenever it says. What is that?
You mean once you're listed?
Yeah.
The whole class on that. Because all you're going for here on the is them to say, yes, I want to list with you, good on pricing, good on commission, and then that's when you lay out the plan. And if you go back here, it's like, okay. Oop, one more, went too fast. Let me go back to the plan, because we're just talking here. We got to prep the home for photos. So when I'm like checking in with them, you're checking in with the whole process. Like, okay, are we prepped for the photos? Are we getting those done? So yesterday I had the photos come back on 2 listings. The minute I'm done talking here, I'm running upstairs to go live, to go hit publish. There's a whole process for that, of course. Once you're on the market, I think that's what you're asking, like, once you're on the market, what does that look like? That can look like a few different things, but first and foremost, know that you should absolutely be talking to your sellers at least once a week. And you can ask your seller that and say, what is your cadence of communication? Because I have some sellers, they're like, it's pretty rare though, that will say, don't bug me until you have an offer. I'm busy, it's a rental property, whatever, just bug me when you have an offer. Even then, I'm going to bug them more than that, because if you list and just go quiet, you're going to get murdered. They're going to fire you. Right? Like, that's like the biggest complaint the Division of Real Estate gets, is some hotshot realtor came out to my house, promised all these things, put a sign up in front of my yard, and I haven't heard from them in 3 weeks. I have no idea what the heck's going on. That is the number one complaint, is communication. So for sure, like a weekly update, I have an auto email that AI has made that pulls all the stats, the Align showings, it pulls the KSL stats, the MLS stats, packages up and says, hey, here's your weekly stats. Here's just a little dialogue on kind of what those stats mean. For more analysis, reach out to me and we can talk about it. That automatically goes out. And then usually I always just, and it goes out every Friday Usually I pipe in and just say, yeah, I also wanted to say I did get some feedback from that showing that happened on Tuesday, and they loved the house except for they said your house stunk. Just kidding. I wouldn't say it quite like that, but you know what I mean. Like I'm going to give a little feedback if I have it, or pipe in on anything. Some weeks it was quiet. We had 0 showings. I'm just going to let that stats email go out, or I'll just say, hey, another quiet week, but that's okay. Hopefully Easter season and these blossoms get us some more showings this week. And I'll just make little comments along the way that way. No, I can, but it's well, the thing is, it's multiple classes. Like, I'll just tell you right now too, everyone needs to be in bold. You guys heard them talk about bold yesterday. Bold's going to touch on a ton of this stuff. But we teach so much here at KW. Pay attention to that education schedule and get into these classes, because you'll need, I don't know, it's just there's so much to learn and it's always changing, but there's multiple classes on doing an awesome job listing. Like today, we're just talking about kind of how do you present it, but then like how do you execute it is a whole nother conversation. Yeah. But don't be afraid of it. There's something to be said too when you've got this listing appointment coming up with your friend. Go get the listing and then run back here to the office, grab Cameron Wilson or whoever, and just say, help me. I've got a listing. What do I do next? I'll never forget when I was first in real estate and I came back here to the office and I had just got my first listing. I said, he signed the agreement. What do I do now? And there's a couple of agents here that said, they gave me high five. I was like, dude, you got your first listing. That's great. Like, let's talk about what your next steps are. Like, okay, they signed it, but are they ready for photos? Are they like, did you make a plan there? And I was all over the place. We just walked through it and got it done, and it gets better over time. So don't feel like you have to have everything perfect, because you never will. Like as polished as even all this looks, it's still a little messy. And there's still a little bit of like, I need to slow down and just like do the best I can working through different situations. So learn. Ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your AI is questions all the time. Talk to it. It should be your best friend right now because it has almost all these answers too. It's what? Yeah.
Right. Oh, I don't know that means that. Goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness it does. Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes people ask me a question. I'll say, did you ask your favorite AI that question before you asked me? And then they don't come back and ask me the question because that answer was way better than whatever the crap I would have given them. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap it up. Questions? Comments? Yeah, fire away.
How would you answer the question? You go through all this, you have a dial presentation, but it's coupon city here, the county. Like, would you do this all for 2%? Just if I really want that extra $5,000. I don't know if you get that.
Oh yeah, we get it all the time. Someone else want to answer it? How do you answer it? It's a classic question. Will you discount your commission?
Situation you are in personally.
First, know that what I've learned over the years too is oftentimes people ask the question, hey, will you discount your commission? And it's a question, not an objection. And so to say, hey, I'm a 3% full service, like top tier Nordstrom's level realtor. So no, I don't discount my commissions. Do you have any other questions? And they say, nope, that was it. And that's the end of that conversation.
You're just telling them if you will discount it, if you don't have the value.
Well, so then I can go there too. When somebody says, hey, well, my neighbor down the street said they're willing to do it for 2%, would you be willing to match that? Then that's usually where I'll say, ooh, you know, I'm worth every penny of that 3%. And my statistics have shown that I generally net people more money in their pocket when they do pay that because of my skill set around marketing and negotiations. What has me concerned about your neighbors, if they can't even negotiate their own value, how well do you think they can negotiate the value of your home?
Come back.
If they're that quick to discount their own commission, they're gonna be pretty quick to discount your home's value. I'm worth every penny of that 3%, and that CMA packet that says that home's worth, I'm gonna stand by that price too, and I'm gonna fight hard to get you every penny in your home. I'm a strong negotiator, and I'm demonstrating that right now with my own commission conversation. So I'll use that script a lot for that. What were you saying? Oh, you had a hand.
No, yeah, we'll ask that. Like, with this conversation, lots of people probably feel like they should ask them.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people just should, and we've all done it too. Like, let's get real. Like, you always ask because it doesn't hurt, right? And so, and sometimes you really don't have to complicate it, but just to answer straightforward and just say, hey, I believe that I'm worth the 3%. Hopefully I've shown that here. What I hear you asking when you say we do a discount, what I hear you actually saying is that you want to net the most amount of money possible in your pocket. Is that right? I almost always use this script, by the way, or just say, is that correct, that you want to net the most amount of money in your pocket? And I want them to acknowledge that it's not about the commission getting paid. It's about making a bunch of money. And that's why I want them to admit that. And I'll say, I love that because I'm passionate about that. And the age-old adage of sometimes you got to pay a little money to make a little money has never been more true than it comes when selling a home. When you're selling a home and you give it a yard sell experience, which is a homey discounted agent experience, you are yard selling your home. And when buyers shop at yard sales, they want and I always make them fill in that blank, by the way, they want a deal. When you hire a professional, like the professional salesman at Tiffany's or at Nordstrom's or whatever, when somebody walks into that store and wants to buy a product that they really love, do they expect a deal? No. They're going to pay for the value of that product because that product is presented and shown that it has that value. That's the experience with me. So we can sell your homes as a Nordstrom ring or a piece of junk at a yard sale. And that's what your neighbor at 2% is saying that he'd like to do is the yard sale experience. That's not me. I'm the Nordstrom's experience. And my whole goal through all of this is to net the most amount of money possible in your pocket. And I don't believe that's through the yard sale experience. Usually the conversation is donezo at that point. Now, if they say, well, I'm buying a house with you, Clay. That's 2 commissions. Will you discount? Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. If I can get 3% on that buy side, I'll go down to a 2.5 on the list side. Every once in a while, if it's a big old house, I'll go to a 2, but that's my lowest. My own sister paid me a 2% commission. Yep, but she bought with me too. And I took the full 3 and didn't give her a credit on that. No, that was actually not it was my brother-in-law of my ex-wife, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Other questions? Hey, you're just in time. We're finished, everybody. Hey. Yeah. Okay, anything else before we're done? You guys are awesome. We're over time. Sorry I talked so much. Hopefully that's helpful. If you guys, I'm going to collect these. If you guys would like a, well, I was just going to say you can buy one, but what I'll do is do the PDF version. That way you can actually like copy and paste and steal it.
It has a really good, like template in there. And I really recommend going.
Which one? Commands?
Command.
Yeah, and you can like, that's why like take some stuff from other people, customize it, make it your own. Yeah, you can buy the PDF, and here's how you're going to buy the PDF. Some of you guys have been in my classes before. I would like you to go to KW Westfield's Google Maps and write a 5-star review on the brokerage. It just helps all of us. Okay? Go write a 5-star review on the brokerage and say, great education, or I love hanging my license here. I don't care what you say. Just have it be positive. It really does. Google, write a 5-star review for our broker, because you're writing a 5-star review kind of for yourself too, right? It's all to write a 5-star review and then just drop me a quick email that says, hey, will you send me that PDF? Yeah, should I give her? No, you can send it to me. It just might take me till the end of today. Clay@redsign.com.